The king of Uruk sits naked and weeping by the water's edge. In his hands he holds nothing. Moments before he possessed the plan of eternal youth, the secret that could make him immortal. Now a serpent slithers away, skin gleaming fresh and new, having stolen the prize that Gilgamesh traveled to the ends of the earth to find. The mightiest hero in all the world has lost his only chance to conquer death. How did it come to this? How did Gilgamesh, 2/3 divine and 1/3 human, find himself broken and mortal, watching his salvation disappear beneath the waves? Long before his fall, Gilgamesh ruled the great city of Uruk with unmatched power. 2/3 god, 1/3 mortal, he was stronger than any man, more beautiful than any woman, and crueler than any tyrant. He claimed the right of first night with every bride and forced the young men into endless labors building his monuments. The people of Uruk cried out to the gods for relief from their king's oppression. They had created Gilgamesh to be their protector, but he had become their tormentor. The gods heard their pleas and decided to act. They would create an equal to Gilgamesh, someone who could challenge the king and teach him humility. In the wilderness beyond Uruk's walls, the goddess Aruru shaped clay with divine hands and breathed life into a new creation. Enkidu emerged, wild, powerful, and innocent. His body was covered in hair like an animal's, and he knew nothing of human ways. He ran with the gazelles, drank from streams with the cattle, and freed animals from hunters' traps. The beasts of the field were his brothers, the open sky his only roof. For years, Enkidu lived in perfect harmony with the natural world, knowing neither civilization nor its corruptions. But the gods had not made him to remain wild forever. Soon, his destiny would call him to face the king of Uruk. A hunter discovered Enkidu and, terrified by this wild man who freed his quarry, sought help from King Gilgamesh. The king sent Shamhat, a temple woman, to civilize the wild man through love and wisdom. For 7 days and nights, she taught Enkidu the ways of humanity. When it was done, the animals fled from him. He was no longer one of them. But he had gained something else: knowledge, speech, and understanding. Shamhat clothed him and brought him to the city, where he learned to eat bread, drink ale, and live as men do. Yet with civilization came new feelings, anger at injustice, and a burning desire to challenge the tyrant king whose cruelty had become legend. When Enkidu reached Uruk, he found Gilgamesh about to claim another bride by force. The wild man stepped into the king's path and declared, "No more." The two titans clashed in the city streets with the fury of earthquakes. They grappled like bulls, their wrestling shaking the walls of houses and cracking the foundations of temples. Gilgamesh had never met his equal in strength, and Enkidu had never faced such royal fury. They fought until the sun climbed high, neither able to claim victory. Finally, exhausted and bloodied, they broke apart and stared at each other with new eyes. In that moment, something extraordinary happened. Enemies became brothers, and the greatest friendship in all literature was born. United in friendship, Gilgamesh and Enkidu became the greatest heroes the world had ever known. Together they defeated Humbaba, the terrible guardian of the cedar forest, and brought back precious wood to build magnificent temples. They slew the bull of heaven that the goddess Ishtar sent to punish them for rejecting her advances. Their names were sung in every corner of the earth, their deeds celebrated in royal courts and humble villages alike. Gilgamesh had found the one thing his divine nature could not provide: a true companion who understood his strength and shared his dreams. In Enkidu's loyalty, the king discovered what it meant to love another more than himself. But the gods watched their growing power with increasing unease. The gods decided that the heroes had grown too proud, too powerful. One of them must die, and they chose Enkidu. The wild man fell ill with a divine sickness that no medicine could cure. For 12 days he lay dying while Gilgamesh watched in helpless agony. The king who had commanded armies and toppled giants could do nothing as his dearest friend slipped away. Enkidu's last words were not curses, but dreams of the dark underworld that awaited him. When death finally claimed him, Gilgamesh's anguish shook the heavens. He had lost more than a friend. He had lost the only person who made him feel fully alive. Now, for the first time, the king of Uruk truly understood that he too was mortal. Gilgamesh fled into the wilderness, wearing animal skins and eating raw meat, unable to accept that death would claim him as it had claimed Enkidu. He sought Utnapishtim, the survivor of the Great Flood, who alone among mortals had been granted eternal life by the gods. The journey led him through Scorpion Man guardians and across the waters of death itself. Mountains blocked his path, but he tunneled through them. Oceans stretched before him, but he found ways to cross them. Nothing would stop him from learning the secret of immortality. His divine blood demanded no less than victory over death itself. At the edge of the world, Gilgamesh found Utnapishtim, ancient and wise beyond measure. The flood survivor looked upon the desperate king with compassion and told him the truth no mortal wants to hear. Death is the nature of mankind. The gods keep eternal life for themselves. But seeing Gilgamesh's determination, Utnapishtim revealed a secret. At the bottom of the cosmic ocean grew a plant that could restore youth to the aged. It was guarded by sharp thorns and crushing depths, but it held the power to cheat death. Gilgamesh tied stones to his feet and dove into the primordial waters, fighting past every danger until his hands closed around the precious plant. At last, he held immortality in his grasp. Gilgamesh began his journey home, carrying the plant of youth like the most precious treasure. He planned to test it first on an old man in Uruk, then use it to restore his own mortality to divine immortality. But the gods had one final lesson to teach him. When he stopped to bathe in a cool spring, a serpent smelled the plant's sweet fragrance and slithered forward. In one swift motion, it swallowed the magical herb and immediately shed its old skin, emerging renewed and gleaming. Gilgamesh could only watch as his hard-won prize disappeared forever. The serpent had gained what the mightiest king could not keep, the power to renew itself through all eternity. Gilgamesh returned to Uruk not as an immortal god, but as a wiser man. He had learned that immortality lies not in endless life, but in the works we leave behind and the love we share while we live. The mighty walls of Uruk, the temples he built, the laws he established, these would outlast his mortal flesh. His story, carved in cuneiform on clay tablets, would speak his name for thousands of years. He had sought to escape the human condition and instead discovered what made it precious. In accepting his mortality, Gilgamesh became truly immortal, not in body but in memory, wisdom, and the eternal power of his tale to move human hearts across the ages.